The time is 6:15. Here's the news edited by Dilini Gunawardana, read by Victor Raj. Here are the headlines of the local news. Farmers will be compensated after bad weather destroys the yalla harvest. Japan assures continuous support to restore the Sri Lankan economy. Over 4,000 vacancies in the Sri Lanka Principal Service will be filled next month. Early landslide warnings are issued to several areas of the island. Colombo Air Symposium 2023 is commenced. Foreign news, World Health Organization calls for humanitarian corridor into Gaza. Sports news, cricket, World Cup 2023. Sadir Samaravikrama hits maiden ODI century. Local news in detail. The Cabinet of Ministers has decided to compensate farmers whose crops were damaged as a result of the arid weather conditions in the 2023 yalla harvest season. Accordingly, a proposal submitted by the Minister of Agriculture was considered by the Cabinet, and it has been decided that the necessary provisions to compensate all affected farmers will be allocated under the current crop insurance scheme. Nearly 59,000 acres of paddy and other crops were left damaged due to the inability to provide sufficient water as a result of the arid weather conditions, from which nearly 53,965 farmers were affected. Japanese Parliamentary Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs Komura Masahiro said Japan would support Sri Lanka's economic recovery process and congratulated the government for stabilizing economy. He expressed confidence that structural reforms undertaken by the government would improve the conducive atmosphere for foreign investments. During his discussion with Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardana at the Temple Trees today, the Foreign Minister said his visit to Sri Lanka to attend the Indian Ocean Rain Association has given an opportunity to interact with Sri Lankan leadership regarding bilateral cooperation. He assured full support to Sri Lanka at IORA. The Prime Minister emphasized the importance of the close cooperation between the two countries with common principles, while expressing deep concerns over escalation of conflict in Gaza Strip. He said the COVID had resulted in a global economic downturn and the world, especially for the developing countries, and could not face another such disaster over military conflict. He urged the two sides involved in the conflict to cease violence immediately. The Prime Minister thanked the Japanese minister for the support extended to Sri Lanka for the debt restructuring process and assured that Sri Lanka is committed to a transparent and comparable debt restructuring process. Minister Komuro Masahiro commended Sri Lanka's efforts in implementing the policy-making process in accordance with the agreement with the IMF and expressed his hope that Sri Lanka will bring itself back on track for development as soon as possible. Education Minister Dr. Sushil Premchand says that it is expected to develop essential human and physical resources in the school system through the upcoming budget. Accordingly, 4,718 principal appointments will be given at the beginning of November in order to avoid the shortage of principals. At the same time, he said that 705 vacancies in Teacher Education Service and 405 vacancies in Education Administration Service will be filled. Human resources deficiencies in the entire education system are expected to be rectified step by step by the next January. The minister expressed these views as the chief guest at the agricultural exhibition held at Mullaitivu Malawi Middle School. Discussions were underway to provide lunch to all the school children free of charge by 2030. In the midst of all these, the minister emphasized that children's education should be maintained without interruption. He requested everyone's support to continue the sustainable education program, and these educational challenges must be overcome in the face of distress such as war conflicts, climate change, and epidemic that the world is facing. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
People's Bank Excelsior. Live the life you want.
Continuing with more local news, the NBRO has issued a landslide early warning message regarding several areas of the island. Accordingly, Level 3 red notice has been issued to Hakmana, Akurasa and Pitabadara in the Matara district. Level 2 amber notice has been issued to Haputale and Haldamulla in Badulla district. Imaduwa, Gaul, for Gravets, Yakkalamulla, Ambalangoda, Aknimana, Niyagama, Badigama, Nagoda, Tavalama, Neluwa, Bopepodala and Alpetia areas in the Gaul districts and the Valasmulla and Katuwani and Hambantota district. Ingiriya, Matugama and Valallava in Kalutara district and Yatiyantota, Ruwanbello, Dehiovita and Daranegala in the Kagala districts are under Level 2 warnings as well. Level 2 warnings are also relevant to Matara, 4 grades, Pasgoda, Kotapola, Atturiliya, Kirinda, Puhulwela, Tihaguda, Balipitiya, Mulatiana, Kamburupetiya and Malimbada in the Matara districts and Kuruvita, Ratnapura, Alapata, Kalawana and Ahalyaguda in the Ratnapura district. Meanwhile, Level 1 warning has been issued to Okevela and Beliyatra in the Hambantota district, Palindanuvara, Bulat Sinhala, Dodangoda and Agalawata in the Kalutara district, Kagala and Bulat Kuhupitiya in the Kagala district and Opanayaka, Kahamatta, Palmadulla, Godakavela, Kiriyalla, Valigapola, Kolonna, Ayagane, Nivitigala and Imbulpe areas in the Ratnapura district. The Chief of Staff of the President and Advisor to the President, Sagala Ratnayaka, says that the government is committed to maintain the Indian Ocean and airspace as a peace zone. He expressed these views at the inauguration of the Colombo Air Symposium 2023. The Colombo Air Symposium 2023 is the only knowledge-sharing platform in the country to dialogue the outcomes of research and the development of worldwide intellectuals in the field of aviation. This is organized by the Sri Lanka Air Force for the 6th time. That ends local news.
People's Bank Excelsior, a comprehensive banking services package with a branded checkbook as well as debit and credit card exclusively for you. People's Bank Excelsior, for professionals who dare to dream.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala Mahatmya.
UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Minister for the Indo-Pacific Anne-Marie Trevelyan arrived in Sri Lanka today. The 3-day visit to Colombo and Jaffna marks the celebration of 75 years of the diplomatic relations between the UK and Sri Lanka and is the minister's first visit to Sri Lanka in her role. Minister Trevelyan will emphasize the UK's long-term commitment to the region at the Indian Ocean Rim Association ministerial meeting hosted by Sri Lanka. Minister Trevelyan will also seek the strengthened IORA work on climate mitigation. That came to you on Main News Story.
The Main News Story was brought to you by Sinhala Mahatmya.
Moving on to Watchlight, the Department of Meteorology today issued a red alert for thunder showers accompanied by severe lightnings in parts of the island. Accordingly, people in north central, eastern and central provinces as well as Badulla, Kagala, Babunia, Mulativ and Mena districts have been advised to be on alert about thunder showers and severe lightning in the evening or at night. The Meteorology Department further warned that temporary localized strong winds can be expected during thunder showers. That came to you on Watchlight. Moving on to world news, headlines first. World Health Organization calls for humanitarian corridor in Gaza. Nobel Prize for Economics Science is awarded to Professor Claudia Goldin. A new study warns that many flowering plants are threatened with extinction. World news in detail. The World Health Organization has called for a humanitarian corridor into Gaza Strip in order to reach people with critical medical supplies. WHO spokesman Tariq Jasavich told that WHO is calling for an end to the violence at the press briefing in Geneva. The WHO said 13 attacks have hit health facilities in Gaza since the escalation began and that the pre-positioned medical supplies have already been used up. It added that a severe shortage of drinking water is expected in Gaza due to the cuts announced by the Israeli authorities. The Royal Swedish Academy of Science has decided to award the 2023 Nobel Prize in Economic Science to Professor Claudia Goldin for having advanced the understanding of women's labor market outcomes. This year's Economic Science Laureate was the first woman to receive tenure in Harvard's Economic Department in 1989. Professor Goldin provided the first comprehensive account of women's earnings and labor market participation through the centuries. Her research reveals the causes of change as well as the main source of the remaining gender gap. Scientists have warned that 45% of the world's known flowering plants could be threatened by extinction. Those under threat include orchids, variants of pineapples, and many important crop species. 77% of the nearly 19,000 new plants and fungi species discovered since 2020 are thought to be endangered. The study by the Royal Botanic Garden in England examined research by 200 scientists in 30 countries. The research referenced large data samples from the World Checklist of Vascular Plants with the International Union for Conservation of Nature's Red List of Threatened Species. To wrap up the world news, let's take a look at the headlines once again. World Health Organization calls for humanitarian corridor into Gaza. Nobel Prize for Economic Science is awarded to Professor Claudia Goldin. A new study warns that many flowering plants are threatened with extinction. That ends world news.
Development news.
The first ever National Supply Chain Day celebrations in Sri Lanka will be held on October 24, 2023 in Shangri-La, Colombo by the Institute of the Supply and Supply and Materials Management. The National Supply Chain Day has been declared in order to facilitate wider prosperity and growth of the economic affairs of Sri Lanka through training and developing supply chain professionals. A commemorative stamp will also be launched to mark this event. That came to you on Development News. Moving on to sports news, the match between Sri Lanka and Pakistan is currently underway in Hyderabad, India. After winning the toss, Sri Lanka chose to bat. Sri Lanka had scored 335 runs for 7 wickets in the end of 48th over. Kusal Mendes scored an impressive 122 runs, while Sadir Samaravikrama contributed to the scorecard with 108 runs in the end of the 48 overs. This was his maiden one-day international century. That ends the sports news.
Business news. Sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go එකක් තියන youth එකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු ගින හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න
The all new NSB Ithru Mithru account NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
The Commercial Bank of Ceylon has won 2 top awards at the 2023 Payment Partner Performance Awards of Daraz, South Asia's largest e-commerce platform. Commercial Bank has been adjudged the best engaging overall cards base for the 4th consecutive year and has also been recognized as the best debt card base at the awards. Presented recently at the Shangri-La Hotel, Colombo, Commercial Bank was the only bank to win 2 awards. That ends business news.
Go එකක් තියන youth එකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු ගින හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න
The all new NSB Ithru Mithru account NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money.
Moving on to economic news, the much-awaited passenger ferry service linking Sri Lanka with India will recommence Thursday. When a service will start connecting India's Nagapattinam and Sri Lanka's Kankasanthurei. This is the second international connectivity to Jaffna, the first being Chennai-Jaffna daily flights. Minister Nimasiripal De Silva said that this was planned almost 6 months before, but was delayed due to various reasons. That came to you on Economic News.
Weather report.
Showers or thundershowers will occur over most places of the island during the afternoon or night. Fairly heavy showers above 75 mm can be expected at some places in the Uva, Central, Sambragamur and Eastern provinces. A few showers may occur in the coastal areas of the Western and Southern provinces during the morning. That ends with the report. To wrap up the evening news, let's take a look at the headlines once again. Farmers will be compensated after bad weather destroys the Yala harvest. Japan assures continuous support to restore the Sri Lankan economy. Over 4,000 vacancies in the Sri Lanka Principal Service will be filled next month. Early landslide warnings are issued to several areas of the island. Columbia Symposium 2023 is commenced. Foreign news, World Health Organization calls for humanitarian corridor into Gaza. Sports news, Cricket World Cup 2023. Saudira Samaravikrama hits maiden ODI century. With that, we wrap up the evening news on Radio Sri Lanka. Back to my good friend and viewers, Chandiba Virakon.